Hello, I'm here at the Pray Vote Stand Summit in Atlanta. My name is Marjorie Jackson. I am with the Washington Stand, and I'm here with one of my favorite podcasters, podcast host of Relatable, Allie Beth Stuckey. Allie, it's great to have you back for another year at the Pray Vote Stand Summit.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're glad you're here. So I would love to know, you're about to hit the main stage. What are you going to talk about?
Yes, I am going to talk about how Christianity, Christian theology necessarily puts you at odds with the culture and engaged in culture wars. Some people think that is beneath Christians, that we shouldn't be focusing on politics because it's too worldly. We shouldn't get our hands dirty with what people typically call culture wars and partisanship. But really, having the positions that we do as Christians, that Christians have held for thousands of years, that there is a God who says what is right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's just, what's unjust, what's true, what's false, what's male, what's female. These are now political positions. And so whether you fancy yourself political or not, having fundamental Christian theology is going to put you in the middle of the culture wars. We just heard Joe Biden a couple weeks ago basically declare people who disagree with him as threats. And it's true. Christians are a threat to progressive secular ideology. So even though we lead peaceful lives and we're just really trying to raise our kids and do the right thing, we are, just by nature of being Christians, a threat to secular progressivism, and that is a good thing. Christians have always been a boil on the back of authoritarians, and we will continue to be that.
So, Allie, I know that you have this podcast that is specifically targeted at young women and young moms. You're a young mom yourself. You're talking about these different cultural issues that a lot of them are coming against children.
Yes.
How can moms and young women and young people everywhere be a threat to those things that are coming against children?
Yes, I always say that children are the unconsenting subject of progressive social experiments, almost always. If you're talking about the sexual revolution, redefining the family, even some unethical reproductive technology or COVID mandates that restricted their ability to learn freely, or of course what we're seeing with gender ideology, children are always placed on the altar of these progressive social experiments. And so that means that we as Christians, but especially as Christian moms who feel not just in our minds, but in our hearts and in our souls and in our bodies, this just drive to defend the most vulnerable, our children and the children in our community, we have to be the one to prevent them from going to the slaughter, from going to that metaphorical altar of progressivism that is out for their minds, it's out for their hearts, it's out for their souls, and in some cases it's out for their bodies. If you're looking at abortion is another example of that. And so we often say raising a respectful ruckus for the things that matter. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. You don't have to be a social media influencer. You don't have to have a large platform. You don't have to be famous in the eyes of the world. God has placed you when and where He has, perfectly, purposely, providentially, not accidentally, not arbitrarily. And your job is to simply do the next right thing in faith with excellence and for the glory of God. And to make the sphere that you occupy, that God has placed you in, better for His glory and the good of other people. I don't know what that looks like for every single person. It might mean in this moment just changing diapers with joy. It might mean one day running for office. It might mean going to the school board meetings. It might mean just talking to your friends about why they are or consider themselves pro-choice. It might be leading a Bible study. It can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. The point is being engaged and trying to change the world around you for the better. And everyone can do that. Everyone can be obedient to God in the next right thing, and don't think that's too small. That can make a big difference.
Allie, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
You talked about raising a respectful ruckus.
Yes.
So midterms are coming up, right? And
Yes.
one of the ways I believe you can raise a respectful ruckus is by voting wisely, praying for the things that are coming up. What can young women and young moms be praying about, be fighting for as we're looking forward policy-wise?
Yes. So politics is not the only way or even often the primary way to love our neighbor, but it is a necessary way to love our neighbor because policies affect people. I say a lot, politics matter because policy matters because people matter. Politics affects policy, policy affects people, and people matter. We as Christians know that better than anyone. And policies typically, if not always, affect the most vulnerable first, the voiceless first, particularly children, as we were just talking about. And so voting for people who are advocating for policies that are defending your right as a parent to instruct, to be the primary instructor in your kid's life and is protecting your religious freedom, is protecting the dignity and the sanctity of life inside the womb, all of that has a real effect on people. So don't think that just because this isn't a presidential election or because maybe you're not hearing all of your friends talk about it the same way that they did in 2020, that it doesn't matter. In fact, midterms in a lot of ways can be more consequential than the elections that we have every presidential elections. And so make sure that you know the candidates, that you're voting for the right candidates, because this is a way to love the people around you. And so make sure that you're voting, but also make sure that your friends are voting. Make sure that the people in your church are voting, your Bible study, take them with you. Say, hey, we can study the Bible together and then we can go vote, or whatever you have to do to get them engaged and to help them realize that this really matters.
That's a good word. Thank you so much, Allie, for your time and for being here. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much.